Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're starting again. Welcome to San Francisco Playhouse and to our Empathy Gym. I'm Bill English, and it's really wonderful to have you here for another fireside chat with my fires behind me with one of America's great playwrights. We've had a real string of Will Glickman Award winners: Aaron Loeb, Lauren Yee, Peter Nachtrieb, Luis Alfaro. And we've also produced this playwright twice at our theater, which isn't nearly enough for me because I think he's one of the greatest writers in the English language at present. And so it's my pleasure to introduce you to Rajiv Joseph. How you doing, Rajiv?
Hi, Bill. I'm good. How are you?
Well, pretty good. We had few technical snafus there. You know, it's the miracle of COVID broadcasting. You know,
Yeah.
we're all operating these little television stations with like super low tech, you know. But where are you these days?
Oh, well, I'm all over the place. Excuse me. Right now, I'm coming to you from the Finger Lakes in upstate New York.
Oh, cool, great. Having
Yeah.
a little getaway, a little time to chill and.
Yeah. I came out here. I cleared some land. I built this here log cabin, and I'm just getting together with my thoughts.
Wow, a log cabin. Oh,
Yeah.
pioneer. That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
So you cleared
Actually, I'm
some
here.
land.
I'm here with some family, and here with my niece and nephew, and my brother, and my sister-in-law, and it was a retreat that we had planned well before the pandemic. And as things happened, it turned out that we could still carry out our plans. So here we are.
So are you sort of like hanging in the Finger Lakes for the duration of it, or have you?
No. Just for this week. Just for this week.
Oh, okay. And you're in New York otherwise.
I'm kind of bouncing between New York and Cleveland, where my parents are from and where I grew up.
Right, right. I knew you were from Cleveland. Wow, that's great. So what do you think of this world? What do you think of the whole situation as an
I
artist?
hate it. I hate everything about it. I hate everything about it. I mean, I wish this wasn't happening, but I am amazed at the adaptability, the emotional adaptability of people, and I think that has its pros and cons. Like we've all adapted one way or the other to this, and some of us, everyone's doing it in different ways, and because of that, everyone has different opinions about everything. But I'm just looking forward to the day that, especially as performing theater artists, and
Right.
my brother plays for an orchestra. He plays for the Buffalo Philharmonic.
Oh wow.
Basically my whole family, like we're just waiting for that 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 hopeful day where people can gather once again in auditoriums and listen to or watch live
We can,
entertainment.
those days when we can cram a bunch of people into a little room,
Yeah, exactly.
which is
Exactly. That's the rarest thing.
what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it's going to be a while, just given the South all were, helpful enough to be the canary in the coal mine, and it just
Yeah.
didn't work. The whole coming out thing. Did you have any shows that were going into production or about to be produced, new plays, or did you have anything on the books?
I did. I had I was just opening a play at La Jolla Playhouse, a musical that I wrote, or I co-wrote with Kirsten Childs and Bill Sherman, called Fly. And Fly is an adaptation of Peter Pan, and we've been working on it for about 10 years. And we did
Oh
it in
my God!
Dallas Theater Center, yeah, about 7 years ago. And it opened on a Sunday and it closed on the following Wednesday because of the pandemic.
Oh
So
my God!
so that was a bummer, but I feel in some ways kind of thankful that we actually got through our 3 weeks of previews and got to
Yeah.
see it open. We had our opening night party, which in retrospect was like, it was the last social event I had. And it was a big blowout party. It was an opening night. La Jolla does opening nights pretty well, and we had a good time. So we at least went out in style.
Well, that's good. So Peter Pan must be in the wind. I know my friend Lauren Gunderson did a Peter Pan,
That's
up
right.
an
Yeah. Yeah.
adaptation of Peter Pan up in New England. So
Yeah.
what was the sort of like the the thing about your version? What was your take on Peter Pan that made it worth doing for you?
Well, I mean, we were focusing, more on the character of Wendy and on the character of Hook,
Ah,
and we were really for us, this was really a story about about memory and and forgetting uh and the kind of the costs of growing up and the values of growing up. So I mean, when you think about the Neverland's a place where you go to never grow up. And
I,
but the very first line of the novel, and we based our musical very much on the novel by J.M. Barrie. All children but one grow up. They soon know they will grow up, and the way that Wendy knew was this. So we kind of took that first sentence um, as our kind of guiding principle of like, the way that Wendy knew was this, which is, so this is Wendy's story, and all children but one grow up. So that means that all the children on the island, except for Peter, grow up. So in our version, all lost boys eventually grow up, but when they grow up, they become the pirates. So that was kind of our conceit, was that the pirates were basically just grown up lost boys that had
oh, I
once
like
been
that.
best friends with Peter, and
We
Wendy
lose.
kind of comes to the island and kind of restores balance and brings people home.
That's awesome. So the pirates are what happened to children when they grow up. We all become
Yeah.
pirates. We
Yeah.
become, we lose some little piece of our humanity along the way.
Yeah, and maybe don't even lose it. We just change,
Yeah.
and I think that, if you're lucky when you grow up, you actually gain something, and if you're unlucky, you don't. And so that's part of the ideas of the play as well.
I was a fan of the original musical.
Me
The
too. Me too.
Mary Martin,
Yeah.
Cyril Richard, right?
He's amazing. I mean, his
To me,
his
he's
hook is
the
just
most. He's
remarkable.
alone. Yeah, alone at the top of hooks, right?
Yeah.
Who's the
Yeah.
slimiest rat in the pack?
Captain Hook.
Who's
Captain Hook.
unlovable? Me. Who's unlivable? Me.
He's just,
And
his
the
songs
he is,
are just terrific. Yeah.
his two songs are my always my favorite. I used to do the cake song for an audition
I love it.
song once in a while. Those boys
All
who
his
have
songs were his plottings, but he needed
yeah.
his men to play a song, and then they would always ask, "What tempo, Captain? What tempo?" And he'd be
That's
like,
right.
"A tango,
A
a
tango.
tarantella."
Oh, that'll have. I'm gonna have to put playing Hook in a theatrical production, like on my bucket
Yeah,
list or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It,
yeah.
it's one of the great roles of musical theater, I think. And then
It is
I used to also ascribe seriously to the "I Won't Grow Up" song,
great, great song.
which
There's
was
so many beautiful songs, and I mean, Neverland is one of the great musical theater anthems of all time.
oh yeah,
Um, I won't grow up. I'm flying. But I like you. I gravitated in that musical, and I gravitated in our musical to Hook, and
yeah.
he was the most. I think in all kind of epic mythological tales, they're only as good as their villain, and the greatest ones have the greatest villains, and
Did people come?
Hook is one of the
Did
greatest.
someone come to you about this project, or did
Yeah.
it originate with you?
Someone came to me, Jeffrey
Uh-huh.
Seller, the producer, came to me. This was a passion project of his, and he actually directed the play,
Uh-huh.
and he's a wonderful director, and it was great working with him in that capacity. But it was his idea, but it was coincidental that it was also my favorite story growing up, and something that I had been obsessed with all my life. So when it
Oh yeah.
came to me, I was like, yes, 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 please let me do
It
this.
wasn't difficult to get you on the project
Not at all. Not at all.
at all. And how long did it take? From you
How
said
long
10
is it
years, right?
taking? How long is it taking is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
better question, Bill.
It's just had
Um,
its out of town tryout now, right?
it's had 2 out-of-town tryouts over the course of 10 years, and you know, God willing, we'll have another one,
Yeah.
or it'll hopefully come to New York at some point. But it is it is the most fun and most satisfying thing I've ever done. It's
Wow.
also the most frustrating project I've ever been involved with, just from my own personal experience with it. Has and I will say that, like, everyone I've worked with has been amazing on it. Like, the frustration has all been in my own heart, because I'm frustrated by the fact that it's a dream come true that I would be able to offer another iteration of this story, and
Right.
that in my mind I haven't yet achieved it. Even
Yeah.
with all the time and effort and money and sweat equity that's been put into it, the book, to me, which is my job, is still the lacking issue.
Oh,
But we'll see.
you still want to work on it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
yeah. That's such a books are the hardest, I think. I mean,
yeah.
that's why I think My Fair Lady is the greatest musical of all time.
Oh, really?
Because it has a book by George Bernard Shaw, for crying out loud, that had been proven,
True.
right, in the marketplace already.
Right.
There's no other musical that rates a libretto like Pygmalion, right?
Right. Right.
No. And to me, there are a lot of musicals with great scores. But I'm also we do musicals, and I'm a Peter Pan fan, so maybe we should take a look at it, see
Yeah,
if
you guys should.
maybe we could help you work on it at some
That'd be
point.
great. That'd be
You know,
great.
some of your favorite directors are some of my favorite directors. So
That is true. That is absolutely true. You guys have done some wonderful work that I've seen there, and that's certainly the shows of mine that you've done there have been top notch, and I've always really appreciated it.
oh, they've been such a joy. How did you? I think many of the people watching tonight were in our audience for Animals Out of Paper. Um, how did that idea come about?
That idea, I was always interested in writing a story about a sort of a child or teenage prodigy, and that was just kind of an idea. I was like, I like that idea. I like genius. I like the idea of writing a genius, because I'm not one, so I might as well try to imagine what it might be like to be one. And I had my thoughts on chess. Because I knew that lots of children are chess prodigies, but that's been done. And one of my favorite movies is Searching for Bobby Fischer, and that's a
Right.
wonderful iteration of that. And I was on a Greyhound bus trip one night. It was actually at night. Everyone was sleeping on the bus except for me and the woman next to me, who I did not know. And she had her little light on. I was reading, and she was doing origami on the little fold-out desk. And I just was watching her. You can't. It's hard. It's hard to not watch someone as they're doing origami. It's hypnotic. And we started talking about it, and she's like, I'm not really good, I just like doing it. But she's like, I teach kids origami. She said all kids like origami. And then she said, some kids, you can tell that they're exceptional at it, and you can tell because they see the folds before they happen.
Yeah,
and
I
uh
can
and that was a
imagine.
line that ended up making it into the play. And because I thought that's the idea of genius, is
Right.
skipping steps 2 and 3 and going from 1 to 4.
You go from imagination to product.
Yeah, exactly. So
Directed
that's where
without
it kind
too
of
much
came
effort.
from. And then
Yeah.
it was also, I was also thinking about hip hop a lot, and about
Yeah.
freestyling, and how that's something I cannot do, and how I'm amazed by it. And so I tried to marry the two. I tried to and so there's a whole, conversation in there about the way that this young man does origami is the same way he thinks about freestyling.
Right. Right. Yeah. Origami. It was such a pleasure to do that play. And I think it had been given to me by somebody to read. I think Meredith McDonough gave it to me.
That
And,
sounds
and
about right.
I read it and thought, oh, I have to do this play right now. So, wrote your agent and got the rights. And then I got home and I thought, what have I done? You know, just because, you had to have a Tyrannosaurus Rex with a jaw that moved and a pterodactyl with a 4 or 5 foot wingspan that was done in origami. And then there were some other really, in the script, there were some other pretty challenging.
The heart.
The heart. Yeah, they had all those things. And I got home and I had an intern and I said, listen, just look up anything San Francisco. There must be origami somewhere in San Francisco. Maybe I can find somebody who does origami, And 3 minutes later, she says, oh, the International Convention of Folders is happening in San Francisco tomorrow.
Not only that, you guys got Robert Lang, who is the inspiration for Ilana Andrews, the main character.
He was. I guess
he was. I read an article about Robert Lang, who is a magnificent artist and scientist. I'm sure I'm going to get this wrong, so just bear with me, like, if you're out there, Robert. But I think he quit a very high-powered job at NASA or some sort of
scientific
firm.
He's like a nuclear physicist at outer space, like.
Yeah, to become a full-time origami artist, and it became a more lucrative job for him. He's one of the foremost origamists in the world, and he ended up doing the hawk for us. I mean, he ended up doing origami for your show, which was outrageous. And I got to meet him when I came to the opening, and it was like I was like meeting like Paul McCartney. I was like, this is amazing. It's like, I can't believe I'm meeting this guy.
He rounded up the other 4 or 5 top folders, some of whom are also like top folders.
Oh yeah, they're all. When I was doing research for the play, I went to the National Origami Convention in New York City, and I called them up. I'm like, hey, I'm writing a play. Can I come? And they're like, sure, we'll get you a press pass. And I had never in my life gotten a press pass for anything. So I went and I hung out and I went to lectures. I went to a lecture of Robert Lang. I never got to meet him in that trip, but a lot of his lecture I just wrote in my notebook and probably ended up copying half of it into the play.
Right.
He had a line, and it made no sense to me when he said it. He's like, the only way to get rid of a pleat is to collide it with another pleat. And that line is in the play. I still have no idea what it means, but it sounded good. So I was like, I'm putting that in.
It's over both our heads.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you're writing about geniuses, you can't expect to understand everything they say.
Exactly. Hopefully you can get some glimpse into what it's like to be one for the ordinary person. Right.
I was just on this trip, one late night, I was sitting up with my parents and we popped in. There was like only a select, like, we don't get any kind of Netflix out here, but like there was like a DVD collection, and Amadeus was in it. We popped that in. And I was thinking that's based on a play by Peter Schaffer. And the way that he unpacks the genius of Mozart in both the play and the movie is one of the most amazing things I think I've ever seen. And it's you're so lucky when someone can do that, because it's like we can just listen to the music of Mozart, but it takes someone like Schaffer to like really unpack something about that so that it makes it accessible to everyone else.
I think he did it through Salieri, because Salieri was how we saw how much smarter a genius was than someone who was really, really smart.
Right.
Really, really talented, Yeah, no, that's definitely one of the greats. Where did Bengal Tiger at the Baghdad Zoo? I read somewhere that there was an actual incident. Did you just read about it in the paper?
Yeah, it was during the war. It was 2003. I was in graduate school at NYU, and it was a small article in the back of the New York Times, and it was about, the zoo had been blown open by bombs, and American soldiers were guarding the zoo, and 2 soldiers one was trying to feed all the zookeepers had gone home, so the animals weren't being fed. Many of them had been looted, and there was the only Bengal tiger in the entire Middle East, and he was starving in a cage, and a soldier tried to feed him. I mean, it wasn't that the soldier was doing anything wrong, but he was trying to feed and save the tiger, and the tiger bit his hand off. In real life, he mangled the hand. He didn't bite it completely off, but he mangled the hand enough that the soldier had to have the hand amputated. And the other soldier shot and killed the tiger. And it was such a bizarre and surreal and heartbreaking story. And the more I thought about it and unpacked it, the more it seemed to be a sort of apt metaphor for the war itself in terms of
Right.
a like when I wrote it on stage, I had a person playing the tiger who spoke to the audience, and I had the two soldiers speaking to themselves. It's a very rhythmic and odd scene because two people are talking to each other, and then a middle person is speaking directly to the audience, and it's like interspersed. But it was all three characters are in a place that they aren't supposed to be, that they never thought they'd be. One is a tiger from India, two are soldiers from America,
So both
and
feeling strangers, like strangers.
yeah, and
They're in
they're
a country that they don't belong in.
yeah, and they're not necessarily enemies. They're not necessarily adversaries, but there's as one seemingly tries to help the other reacts in the way that it's in its nature to react, and then there's bloodshed. And then the big twist for me, and I wrote that first scene as a 10-minute play, actually,
Oh,
not
cool.
thinking it would continue. And at the end of the play, the tiger being shot and killed actually steps out of the cage and is now a ghost, and kind of looks
That
at
was
his body.
that was the end of the 10-minute play? Him
Yeah.
stepping out of his body?
Yeah, and like kind of seeing his body for the first time and saying, "Ah, that's how I look," and and I always loved that moment. Maybe to this day, it's my favorite moment of the play, which is like that moment where you know I think metaphysically we're thinking about like anytime your ghost or even yourself is able to. I mean, I would love to be able to step out of my body and see how I look actually
Yeah.
in life. Like I look in the mirror every day, but I'm looking at myself right now on Zoom. But I
Not the
actually don't
same.
know how I look. I don't know how I seem, you know? I don't know if any of us do. And so maybe that's a power of a ghost is that you can step out and look at yourself and be like, that's how I look? Ah, you know, it always seems a little, I'm afraid of what I might see.
Yeah, aren't we all? I
Yeah.
think that that scene, when you said it's an odd scene rhythmically, it's a bitch to
Yeah.
play.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I had great actors, just some of the strongest actors that I ever worked with. The great Will Marchetti playing the tiger, and it was just like it was so hard
Yeah.
because it feels like total non sequiturs when the one character is just randomly saying stuff. It's kind of a monologue, right? That
Yeah.
he's the tiger is doing while the other guys are talking back and forth with themselves. But it's just like it's kind of like Bach, I think. Like
Yeah. It's kind of an invention where one hand follows the other, but it doesn't all. I mean, on Broadway, they did it. They did the entire first scene as part of Fight Call,
yeah,
right before Fight Call. Like they just did the whole scene,
absolutely. We did
every
it
night.
every day.
Yeah.
We did okay. You know, sometimes you do a play and it's got a scene that's really choral, or it's got some sort of scene that is just it's the hardest scene in the play. Okay, we're gonna do this every night.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And was a good great warm up too. That play, I just so my hat's so off to you on that play. It's one of my
Thank you.
all-time favorite plays because it's just so epic and so brilliantly captures the war, what war does to people, and what how this collision of cultures is just so devastating to and liberating
Hmm.
too. I mean, the the character whose hand I forget the names now, but the soldier whose hand doesn't get bitten off,
Kev.
who becomes himself a ghost
Yeah.
and then becomes a Muslim ghost
Hmm.
in the desert, is kind of reborn. I just love his story. Great story. And the
You know, the Bengal Tiger. It started in New York, but its real first opportunities found its way into the Bay Area. First with the Playwrights Foundation, they did the first ever public reading of that play.
right.
Um, I don't know how many years ago. I it, it embarrasses me to even think about how many years ago. And then I also did several readings of it at the Magic Theater before you guys ended up doing the Bay Area world premiere of it. And And so
There were
it,
some workshops, yeah.
yeah, there were workshops, and so I always feel very and when it comes to that play, very connected to San Francisco and the Bay Area because of the 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 feedback and the work I was able to do on the play in that city, which
Yeah.
was also my first time in the city. I had never been to San Francisco, so the Tiger brought me to San Francisco.
Well, thank God that it did. You know, we've done so. I did not know that it had come that it had, first reading had been at the Playwrights Foundation,
Yeah,
because we just have done a tremendous amount of plays
yeah,
that have started there, like
yeah.
a dozen, and I think Amy has such great taste in
I mean, it's yeah, they do. It was one of the early breaks for me in my career that I'm always very grateful for, and
wow.
they and the amount of attention and kind of support I received from them was wonderful, and I'd also opened my eyes to theater in the Bay Area, and and
Right.
I've done so much theater. I've done 2 plays at SF Playhouse. I've done a number of plays in Palo Alto at Theater Works, and I do feel a real connection to that part of the United States, and it's literally it's probably my favorite thing about being a playwright. I don't know if there's other creative writing jobs that allow a writer to travel their country and the world
Right.
to see their work done.
Awesome.
It's my favorite thing about this career is the friendships and the connections I have to places like San Francisco, Palo Alto, Dallas, Houston, LA, Chicago. It's wonderful.
I think they did Guards at the Taj at Marin too.
That's right. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was their contribution to the Bay Area Rajiv Joseph canon.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've worked a lot with Giovanna, who is Sardelli, who is someone that our audiences know. We've been doing these Monday night, call them Zoomlet
Uh-huh.
things, where it's a short play, like the first 10 minutes of Bengal Tiger,
Yeah.
short plays that are director driven. So the director picks the play, picks the actors, talks to the audience about what their theory is about how it should be done, and then talks to the actors, and then there's a reading, and then they talk about it more, and then they read some more and talk about it more. So it's kind of like being on a fly on the wall at a first read. And Giovanna did one the other day that was really
Oh,
fun.
that's great. Giovanna she directed my first play ever, Huck and Holden, at the Cherry Lane Theater in New York City in the West
Oh, I did
Village.
not know that. Yeah,
Yeah, and she's
I know the
directed
play.
more plays of mine than anyone else, and
Yeah,
we continue to collaborate, together. The last thing that she directed of mine was Describe the Night in New York City, which won the Obie Award
right.
for Best New American Play. So it's been this great, fruitful, collaboration and friendship that you know uh, is very very dear to me. And it's you're lucky in this business if you find a collaborator like that is
Yeah,
someone that opens up your creativity, but also opens up your heart, and becomes like a friend for life. And I think that anyone that's in this business, and by this business I mean theater, performing arts, the arts in general. The I think what there's so many things that matter, and so many things that drive us, and so many things that draw us into this business, and compel us to create art. But at the end of the day, it's just all about the friendships,
yeah,
and all about the relationships. It's that's
collaboration.
that's 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 why it'll never go away.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get to do some more
I hope so, Bill. I mean,
together.
that's my deepest hope, and
Yeah,
we will. I mean, we
definitely.
will. It's just
We will. We'll
we're
definitely
just we hit a snag here.
hit a brief little hiccup,
Yeah, yeah.
a slightly longer intermission than usual.
Give us some time to
But
think about things. Give us some time to just take stock of our lives and
yeah,
our and how we're doing this and why we're doing this, and hopefully when this does come back, we'll be stronger for it, and we'll be more aware of our place in the world.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like the opening statement to what is we all, I think the thing we all know is that theater and art are just going to be changed by this, you know, by the Black Lives Matter movement and the awakening in that level where people of color have really kind of stood up and said the theater has to change.
Right.
And that's having a big effect on us, on our theater, and on all theaters, and will have an effect on the material we do. The COVID is like reminded us, I don't know, maybe more forcibly than any other event in history, that all humans were in it together.
Mm-hmm.
We just still can't get people to understand that, I guess, or maybe, but I feel like on a subliminal level, we are getting it.
Yeah, and I think that like what's happening right now in this country and in the theater is, it's a reckoning with ourselves, and it can be painful, and it can be uncomfortable, and it can evoke a lot of emotions. But when you think about like any work of art, like anytime you're avoiding those, or anytime you've like realized that you've skirted them for whatever reason, whether it's just like I don't feel like dealing with it, and I deal with this all the time as a writer. I avoid things all the time, and that's what first drafts are for. First drafts are for avoiding the tough stuff, and second drafts are for that too, and third drafts are for that too. But when you get to the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 100th draft, it's time to start digging in. And American theater is not that old, actually, and
No.
but we're on a new draft, and I think it's time to start digging in and really
Yeah.
grappling with some of the issues that we've all been thinking about, whether we're aware of it or not.
What are the stories that people will want to hear and see? There's going to be a ton of people writing COVID plays, I suppose, but
I don't
hopefully.
think so. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Who wants once we're out of this, no one's gonna want to go back to it.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I hope not. I mean, I like, and I hope no one's writing Trump plays either. Like, let's let both these diseases
That
just
should be against the
disappear.
law.
Yeah.
Or there should be a law of ethics in the American theater banning Trump plays for forever.
I mean,
So
or if you do, you have to socially distance and wear a mask.
what's percolating from you? Do you have any thoughts about plays, ideas? Do you visualize any kind of storytelling or any sort of approach to storytelling that you feel, intuitively is a direction that you could go or might go? Or that's a weird question.
I think that the for me personally, it's just about it's just what I said. It's kind of like I'm just trying to look deeper within myself, and I think that like uh, I think that for me personally, like sometimes I think a while ago, a few years ago, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, I started figuring out some theatrical tricks that I could use in playwriting, and I think those tricks kind of worked pretty well. But then I started using the same tricks, and when you start doing that, I think that you have to start thinking about, oh wait, writing plays isn't about tricks; it's about excavating. It's
Right.
about thinking deeper about things. It's about unearthing your own shit, and that's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to unearth it, trying to unearth my own shit, and I hope it leads to something, but I don't know if it will. But I hope it does, and that's all I can say. I mean, it's like I don't know of any. I don't know what stories I'm going to want to tell going forward. I don't know where I'm going to be in a year or 2 years or 3 years, and I think that's okay. I've never liked the question, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Because then a year like this
I
comes
have
along, and you're
no
like, "Oh,
fucking
it's all
idea.
out the window." You're like, we don't know. um, and that's it, there's tragedy to that, and there's frustration to that, but there's also beauty to it. It's like we don't know, none of us know where we're going to be in a year,
Yeah.
and as awful as that might feel on its surface, there can be an opportunity and a beauty in that, and that's what I'm kind of clinging to right now.
I like those words, excavate and
Mm-hmm.
unearth. I read a description that Mary Zimmerman made of the nature of creating theater, which was that you basically there is something that's buried in sand, and it's like an archaeological dig.
Yeah.
And you just start brushing away the sand little by little until you start to see this tip of a old temple, and then you keep brushing and slowly and carefully, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't want to damage it, but slowly and carefully you reveal something of value, something of great value. So, well, hey, thanks for coming along on the chat. Sorry we had a little trouble getting into it, but it's great to see you, and it's great to
too,
hear
Bill.
about all your work and what's going on in your heart and what's happening with Fly. I'd like to read it, if you're open to
I'll send it to you.
letting me read it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd be very interested to read it. I noticed something else on our resume, that you had a little choral career as a kid.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. I used
Wait.
to sing in choirs. I actually sang in choirs my whole life. Even when I moved to New York, I sang in the Juilliard choir for several years,
Uh-huh.
which is a choir composed not of people who go to Juilliard, because
Right.
the singers that go to Juilliard would never deign to sing in a choir. So it was a volunteer choir. My brother went to Juilliard for his instruments.
Yeah.
So he got me into that, and it was great because I got to sing on Carnegie Hall. It was wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like a community choir.
Yeah. Except the community is New York City. It's Manhattan. It's Upper Manhattan. We're singing at Alice Tully and Carnegie Hall. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's community, all right. Yeah, I grew up in the church. My parents were both church musicians.
Oh wow.
It's like music was like air, and I sang I sang a long time in choir. I mean, even clear into my 30s, I was in a choir. Then I started the theater, and
what did you sing? Were you baritone?
I was a tenor.
Oh, you're a tenor. I'm a tenor too. You have a deeper voice. I thought maybe it's just your director's voice.
As I got older, my voice dropped.
Yeah.
Something, or it was the vodka or the smoking. Neither of which I do anymore.
Yeah.
But I think they took their toll.
Right.
My voice, something like that. Anyway, great to see you.
You too, Bill. Thank you so much for having me. It was really a pleasure talking to you today.
Yeah, I hope to see you back in San Francisco sometime.
I can't wait. I love that city.
For some art making.
I do love the city. I'm not a huge fan of the basketball team, but besides that, we'll go on.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in to our Fireside Chat with Rajiv Joseph. We're just really excited to have him here. We're going to have a Zoomlet this coming Monday, which is going to be The Mommy Principle by Geeta Reddy, and it's a fantastic play. And do you know Geeta? Have you met her?
I've not actually met Geeta, but I know her work, and I know that Giovanna does, and I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, she's great, and she's Bay Area playwright, and one of my favorite playwrights. So we'll have her on Monday. Then on Thursday we'll have Fireside Cocktails with Susie and Mr. Louis Parnell, who was actually the actor in our very, very first play and a board member, and we're going to just have a conversation and a few cocktails. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.